this is like the intangible quality of New Hampshire that it's like hard to capture and like promote and market is like, how do you talk about that? Like, how do you talk about the community's aptitude and like appetite for wanting other people to succeed?
Yeah.
But like we have that in New Hampshire.
Right.
That's unique.
Yeah.
That's extremely unique.
Yeah.
So I do like when I have the opportunity to talk to young people one-on-one, I'm laser focused on that opportunity. That's what I experienced.
Yeah.
And I've seen it across the board with, other folks in my network.
Right.
And it's really important. Again, that's the New Hampshire spirit.
Yeah.
Neighbors helping neighbors.
The New Hampshire way.
The New Hampshire way, that granite state of mind.
You're listening to Granite Goodness, the show about optimism, progress, and problem solving in and around New Hampshire. My name is Andy DeMeo, and today I'll be coming to you from Portsmouth. On this episode, I chat with Corinne Benfield, who is the Executive Director of Stay Work Play New Hampshire, where she works to showcase the Granite State as a vibrant, dynamic place where young people can build fulfilling lives and careers. Her predecessor at Stay Work Play, Will Stewart, came on episode 25 of Granite Goodness. Corinne and I talk about why New Hampshire is an amazing place for young people to build their lives, the work she does to make it even better, how her background as an artist built her resilience and problem-solving skills, whether Manchvegas is a compliment or an insult, and many other things. On this episode of Granite Goodness, I hope you enjoy it. Corinne Benfield, welcome to Granite Goodness.
Thanks, Andy. I'm so glad to be here.
I'm so glad that you're here. I've been wanting to talk to you for way too long, and I feel like that's true for everyone I talk to, but it's especially true for you. Like, I was supposed to talk to you in February, and then like I messed it up probably 4 times again, and
I don't think that was just you, Andy. I have been struggling with my calendar. It's been busy.
Yeah.
It's been busy these past few months, but I am so glad to be here on this like very rainy but lovely, foggy New Hampshire day.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, we've been talking, nonstop since the moment you walked in here, and we're really just like flipping and taking record. We're going to continue our conversation, but why did you want to like come on Granite Goodness, Corinne? Like, what are you doing here? I mean, I wanted to talk to you, but you seem pretty amenable to the concept. Like, tell me about that.
Yeah, I just love what you're doing here. Really shedding light on positivity and flipping the script. I think a lot of people in my network, a lot of people in my world are really burnt out from the negativity and the polarizing stuff in the media.
Just all of it.
And it's just really refreshing to have a different take. And, so I represent Stay Work Play New Hampshire, and, recently, we're talking a lot right now about the housing crisis in New Hampshire, and we're talking a lot about how childcare is really unaffordable and how young people are really struggling. And a lot of that is imbued with sadness, to say the least. Yeah. And it's weighty. And so I'm really excited to talk to you about hope and about all of the amazing things that New Hampshire has to offer and the amazing things that young people are doing for our state, like you. Right. That's also why I'm here. Like, you're an incredible young person, like doing incredible things for our state. And that's a story that is worth telling. Yeah.
Well, I appreciate that very much.
Yeah.
It is funny, youth is all relative, I suppose, totally. Right? And we were talking, I'm about to cross the dinosaur threshold of turning 30, which I really don't like. It's all, I hate that stuff, actually. I get why people get excited about like 30 under 30. And yeah, it is really cool when there's like really young people doing enterprising things, but like, oh my God, when people obsess a little too much about like, you have to stay young forever. It's like, no, you die when you stop learning new things. Yes. And being comfortable with change. It's not about having gray hair or saggy skin. Like, that's how I feel. I'm wicked excited to be an old man. I literally wish I could just like press a button and be a grandpa.
You like just like touched my heart. This is something I struggle with in my role, is trying to bring in people of all ages to our mission, because the word young and youth and YP is very exclusionary. And, we do service a demographic that is age based. We serve 20 to 40-ish year olds. Yeah. Just like AARP starts at 55 and older, that's kind of how I distinguish it. However, I qualify youth the same way you just described. And we did not have that conversation before we turned these mics on.
No.
But I always say, literally bury me when I say I refuse to learn something new.
Yes.
That is when I am elderly. That is when I have decided that I am old.
Oh yeah.
But if I can be 97 years old, and if I am willing to learn something new, I am a young person.
Yes.
Is how I see it.
Yeah.
And so anybody that is part of that ideal set is, you can be a part of, we'll take you, but you are a part of progress.
Right.
I'm just so glad that you said that, because I'm like, it's nice to already have that level set.
Yeah. Well, I know people, it's been fun moving up to Tamworth, right? Again, certainly, and again, this is like going to frame all these things.
Yeah.
New Hampshire, as you know, better than anyone in the world, probably, right? We're in an old part of like all societies around the world, right, are aging. The birth rate has gone down. That's a whole thing.
Yeah.
But, we're experiencing it in the United States. We're experiencing it in New England, right? New England even sticks out as like, whoa, this is much older. And New Hampshire, I think, what is it? It's like the second or first oldest.
We are...
it's up there.
We're tied for second oldest in the country with Vermont. We were number 2. So I think that's a bit of a win.
Yeah.
But to your point, I don't see that metric changing too much, just given that birth rate.
Right. There's our structural forces at play,
and I think that's okay. I think we'll be able to kind of like hold that torch for a while, and we are seeing an in-migration of young people. I think New Hampshire really does attract a certain type of person. Like, you live in Tamworth and you live on a farm, and it's like, that is such like a cool way of life, and yet like you're producing a podcast, like, very cool. Like, you can do all things in New Hampshire,
right?
And I think that is like the special sauce that we offer as a state, as a community. So the more that I think people are like woke to that, we'll see more of that influx.
Yes. No, I very much. I mean, part of some of my favorite conversations, and we'll put it this way. A moment ago, I only mentioned, Tamworth, right? Because, like, again, in an old country, in an old region, in an old state, I live, relative to all those things, in an old town. Yeah. Right? So it's like these degrees, there are not many, young people up where I live. And, let's just say this. A lot of the older folks that I know, people in their 60s, like, I know young people who I would say have an older, like, they're just functionally, not living. Like, some of the older folks I know are so dynamic and just they're learning new things always, and like they have an energy and a spirit about them that, again, I know people a third their age who are just like, totally, I wish we could have it all, for them too. And just like, so it's not, we do a good job, I think, and you would know better than me, of like, there is dynamism in every age demographic, right? That we're here to celebrate and talk about.
And there's wisdom in every age demographic too. And I think I think when you as an organization, when an organization services one demographic and has to be a champion for that demographic, it can be isolating to others. And specifically when it comes to celebrating young people, it's interesting because in New Hampshire, by and large, our population is, or we're missing that middle. We're missing that demographic, that 20 to 40-year-old demographic. Yeah. So, disproportionately, they're not at the table. Right. So when you're trying to celebrate those people, to me, it actually makes sense to put priority there, specifically in New Hampshire. And yet there is some pushback, and I can absolutely sympathize with that.
Right.
I can sympathize with that. And, when you're saying we need to celebrate and support a demographic that we as a state need to attract in order to thrive. I think everybody, no matter your age, can get behind that, because there are ripple effects when you make space, when you make space at the table for those people.
Right.
And I love what you said about how you have seen folks of other ages who
interesting people
who are interesting, and maybe even act younger than those 20 somethings that are in your network. And I'll say, like, from personal experience, like, my mom is like insane. She's 62. She's 62, and she every year travels across the country by herself in her car for like 3 weeks. And this is like something that she looks forward to every year. And she's just like adventurous and free spirited and independent. And she just does that.
She just does it.
I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that.
Yeah. You're like,
so like, those characteristics that you would attribute to a young person.
Yeah.
That's kind of bull, honestly.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I really hope for, my tenure as executive director with Stay Work Play, I'm able to find more entry points for people of all generations, all credences, all backgrounds, to find themselves reflected in our mission.
Yeah.
And it definitely is like, that's definitely a challenge, broadening a mission to resonate with diverse backgrounds and with diverse perspectives. But it's a challenge I really accept wholeheartedly, and I think that's the way that we move the needle, is by making sure everybody feels included and finding the solution. And positivity and hope is like part of that. So this conversation is really important.
Big tent, big table, right? I love thinking of we are seated here at a giant metaphorical table. So it's apt, but that's actually the thing I really wanted to dig into with you is I read this thing a while, I don't even remember what it was, but it was kind of about like society, like people are living longer, that's good, right? Like no one is pro people die sooner, okay? But part of that, right? Like the way that we think about leadership and responsibility, I think has changed a lot over time. Some better ways, some ways probably not so good. And like people think of these examples all the time, right? Of like, hey, did you know the founding fathers of the United States were in like, they were like 26 and stuff, like when they did all that. And like, that's often not how Ben Franklin was pretty old, but like, you know what I mean? So like, or the particular thing that I had read that made me think about this, like 100 years ago, I think, I don't know, the president of Harvard University or something was like, he was like 29,
right?
Like when this person, because like the timeline of leadership and responsibility, like it's just changed a lot,
totally,
right? And so the clarion call for what that article was about was like we should, yes, wisdom, experience, age, like these are all great things, but I think we've gone a little far in that direction. Like we should make it easier for young people to get positions of real responsibility and leadership and be able to innovate and bring dynamism to things. And so when I saw that you were brought into this role, I was like, this is a great example and very appropriate for what the organization is. It's like you are how old are you even?
I'm 31.
Oh my God. Yeah. So you're a spring petunia. I don't even know what that
spring chicken.
You're a spring chicken.
Well,
right. Well, relative.
My back would say otherwise, but yes.
But I think it's a really cool thing that you get to lead this organization. And like, so was that like an intentional thing? Like in the next, the board or whatever, like tell me the story of like, why did they choose you? And I can tell already you're a great person, but so like, good. How did you get into this? Why was this an attractive opportunity to you? What do you think of the fact that, you're a younger leader compared to a lot of your peers in like the nonprofit and different spaces in New Hampshire.
Yeah.
That's like 7 questions at once.
No, you are great at asking questions because you provide a lot of context. And I feel like, so first off, I'm super passionate about what you just brought up, that why P's in leadership is so important, not only for the health of organizations, but also for the health of individuals. Right. So I've been very lucky in my life to have really strong mentors who have made space for me in the organizations that I've been a part of.
Right.
2 in particular. So I started my career. Well, let me like pull it back a little bit. So I grew up in New Hampshire. I grew up in Manchester and Bedford. I'm supposed
to ask this. Tell me about.
Hey, I'll start from the beginning. And I tell this story I tell my origin story often because it's part of how I got linked up with Stay Work Play, because Stay Work Play is very much so part of my story, my career path story.
Yeah.
So I grew up in New Hampshire. I grew up in Manchester and Bedford. And I say that very specifically because if you were from Manchester and I told you I was from Manchester, you would call shenanigans on me because I went to school in the Bedford school system.
Right.
But my parents are divorced. So I grew up in Manchester, lived in Manchester my whole life, but I went through the Bedford school system.
We're living hold on. My parents are divorced and one of them lived in Londonderry and the other one lived in Bedford.
Oh.
So we've been living like parallel lives.
Oh my God. You didn't go to the Bedford school system?
I went first grade. I went to Riddlebrook Elementary, and then I moved to Londonderry and finished my studies from 2nd to 12th grade in the Londonderry school system.
I started my studies at Peter Woodbury Elementary School.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, well, that is actually quite hilarious.
Yeah.
So the dual residency.
Yeah.
Really is defining for me because I still claim Manchester as my hometown, but. If you graduated from Central High, you would be really mad at me.
They can spot a fake Manchvegas in.
Oh yeah.
By the way, as someone who is like actually from Manchester or
I still live in Manchester, to be honest. So.
Right. Yeah, you're there.
Yeah.
What is like Manchvegas? Is that an insult? Is it a celebration? Like, what does that mean to you?
I don't know. I went to college in the South, and I think the first time I told somebody I was from Manchvegas, they loved it.
Okay.
And they laughed, and they just thought it was so funny and cool. Yeah. But I do think there's some stigma in there. Manchester is very much so trying to like shake off the old negativity, the old stigma that there's.
It's a shady city.
Yeah, that's shady. That's too gritty. That there's crime, all the at every stop sign. Manchester is doing incredible things.
Yeah, they are.
Maryaway is incredible. The Manchester Economic Development Office is like superb. Jody and Eric, they're just an incredible duo. The Chamber of Commerce down there, I could keep going on, but Manchester is incredible. So Manchvegas, I actually kind of feel like we should claim that a little bit, but
let's reclaim Manchvegas.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm pro Manchvegas. For the record.
I think I'm pro Manchvegas.
Yeah.
So there's something there.
There's a variety of positions on any issue.
Yeah, there you go.
That's what we can say.
There you go. So I went away for college. I have a background in art, so I went to Savannah College of Art and Design. I have a BFA in painting.
I'm so jealous of that.
I like to tell people. So when I say that, it's like, oh, how did you get into like the business world or nonprofit leadership? So I went to art school, and this was visual arts. This was studio classes where I was in studio often. So most of my college experience was 90 minutes of grueling critique.
Wow,
so you would stand up in front of a class of your peers with art that you produced and undergo 90 minutes of critique.
Huh.
So I have a really strong backbone. Yeah. I also have no shame, which I think actually has served me really well in this role.
I was going to say, did you ever model? Because I did some of that in college.
Yeah.
And I found it to be very
liberating.
It was extremely liberating.
Yeah.
And a lot of people talk about it that way. Well, people draw me, right? Like it's a unique experience that you can't always get, in like a structured environment like that. So I love what art school can do for people.
Yeah, it's been incredible. So that definitely like toughened me up a lot. And so like having to defend your work and be able to like think on the fly, right. And because you don't know what people are going to ask you, and there are going to be some parallel questions that come up, and you're really going to like, I don't know, I am pretty comfortable at defending my perspective, and I think I feel pretty comfortable in my integrity as well. And so I say that only because I think it has helped me navigate my career a little bit.
Yeah.
And so I'm actually I'm a really strong advocate for art school and like creative careers being a conduit for a lot of different pathways. For, you know,
right.
For your career, for your career.
Anything.
You don't really have to, as a student, you don't really have to zero in on a narrow path for yourself.
Right. Yeah.
There are many different opportunities. So I say that just because I think it's important. It's important to broaden your horizon.
Well,
so,
can I just say too, that's a fascinating. I've known a lot of artists. And a lot of people who went to art school, none of them have shared with me what you did just now, right? That there is, and maybe your experience was different and unique, and it's very cool. Like that there's an entire, like you're almost making it sound like a law degree, like a debate,
right.
You know, that there's an intense rhetorical exercise to have gone through of like, you get up there with your, you know, painting of something cool and interesting, right? And they just tear you apart.
Yes.
And that has given you like, I've never heard that about art school, but that's really cool.
Yeah. And I mean, it kind of jaded me a little bit on art. Like I don't create.
You don't
so
doodle
much
anymore? You doodle?
Oh, I doodle.
Yeah.
I just don't really like create for myself anymore.
Sure.
And like, that's okay. I like have other creative outlets, but
we should have brought a painting of yours and put it right here.
I know. Oh God, I don't know if
the
world is ready.
They have to be positive because it's the Granite Goodness podcast.
Oh,
so
well,
they can't say mean things
I don't know if I have any positive art. I think you'd be surprised. My art is like very like macabre and
interesting.
Yeah, I know. It doesn't really fit my personality.
That's a whole other. There's going to be part 2 of this.
I know. Seriously. All right, back on subject. So yeah. So whatever. I kind of like navigated my way back to New Hampshire after checking myself on my preconceived notions on what my path was going to be. I thought it was going to be in New York, and that's the only place that I was going to be able to have a creative career, and ended up not enjoying the city to the extent that I thought I would. To the extent that I thought I would.
Right.
I came home as like a stepping stone and visited the Currier Museum of Art and had a very different interaction with that collection. And if anybody hasn't been to the Currier Museum of Art, shameless plug.
Yeah, it's awesome.
An incredible organization. The collection is astounding. We're so lucky as a state to have that institution here.
Yeah.
Globally recognized. And yet, like a lot of people in New Hampshire don't even know that it's in their backyard. So I'm very passionate about the museum, and I started my career there. So
right on.
Yeah. So I guess I share that because art really brought me back here, and a New Hampshire institution kept me here. And Stay Work Play was very formative for me. I came back in 2015.
Yeah.
Stay Work Play was very formative for me. That was when Will Stewart came on
episode
as CEO.
23.
Yeah.
I don't actually know. But
shout out Will.
Yeah, he's the man.
Yeah.
Love him.
So he was coming on as the new executive director, and he was also my alderman at the time, Ward 2, Manchester, New Hampshire, best ward. I don't live there anymore, so I can still say that it's still best ward.
Yeah.
And it was just like very affirming for me to have an organization whose entire mission was to tell me that they wanted me to stay.
Right.
It was like transformative. It was transformative for me.
Yeah. Where does that ever happen?
Yeah. And, you know, I will say, like, you know, growing up in New Hampshire, not to say that New Hampshire felt cold.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, it's cold, but like,
yeah.
it never felt like it never felt like I had.
It was a warm, exciting future here.
Yeah, like I had a lot of opportunity and prospects here. And so coming back and having fresh eyes and perspective, and then having that additional affirmation that there has been investment, statewide investment in an organization that is aimed at keeping me, a young person of that demographic who is willing to put in the effort to make New Hampshire a better place.
Yeah.
You know, it was great. It was really great for me to see that. And so, and so I can speak a little bit about our board and the board's decision to bring me on. So Will was with the organization for 7 years. He did incredible work. He was the second executive director of Stay Work Play. Kate Lusko, who's with Health Force now, she just was named one of New Hampshire's outstanding women in business. Yeah. So shout out to Kate. Stay Work Play has a really strong history of selecting really wonderful executive directors. So, the Stay Work Play board is incredible. Yeah. They're made up of a diverse group of business leaders, young business leaders, community leaders, and I will say they, in this iteration, were very much so looking for somebody that had fresh perspective. Yeah. You know, I'm very different than Will. He'll say that too. Yeah. And I think that was, intentional. Right. I think this organization needs to be able to cycle in order to reflect the demographic that it serves. Not so much in age, but I think in vibe. Right. Yeah, 100%. And I definitely, that was definitely my tact coming in. Yeah. I take my role very seriously. Yeah. Stay Work Play is a microphone for young people in New Hampshire. Right. If I am tasked with reflecting the young people of New Hampshire, right, I'm going to do that as authentically as possible. Yeah. And so I take that very seriously. And, so I do think that the board sees that, and that is part of our vision moving forward. Yeah. Is really being able to capture that spirit. Yeah. So I think that answers the question.
No, it totally does.
I feel like that was like 15 minutes ago. I'm so sorry.
No, this is what podcasts are for. Okay. Sometimes people will say that and they'll be like, "Oh, they're like, well, here's the short answer." I'm like, "Give me the long answer."
Okay, good. I gave you the long answer.
That's right. Yeah, I know. Sometimes I'm like, I try and keep him to an hour, but like, there is something to be said for like the 4 hour. The Rogan, love him or hate him, has blazed this path into just like, no, you really can talk for a long time, and
you chat.
Yeah, people will listen to it. So yeah, no, that's fantastic. I feel well represented. I've never met you until now, which is very exciting. But like, I would feel great that awesome. I feel like you're a good representative of, the interests of young people. So how long? It's been like a year-ish, 6 months. Like, remind me.
6 months-ish.
Oh my God.
September is when I came on.
Okay.
So
this is great. I'm catching you right at the beginning.
Yeah. Oh, thank you for saying that, because it feels like a million years, but also like it's only been 6 months.
Yeah, 6 months is not.
Yeah.
This is great, Corinne. Granted Goodness is a baby, and you're a baby in your tenure at Stay Work Play, and so that like we should continue.
We're gonna grow together.
We're gonna grow together. Let's get old together.
I love
grow
that.
Old together?
I would love to do that. In 6 months, we should have we should reconvene.
100%.
Yeah.
And then I'll have a wig or
Perfect.
just actual gray hair. I
love
can't
it.
wait to have gray hair. I really want it. Wait, so like, tell me, how is it like? Well, I'm not gonna say how's it gone. I think that's a bad question. But like, how's it gone?
Yeah, I can answer. That's not a bad question.
Well, like, what do you? Think about it this way. What's something that you know now that you wish you knew going in? Like, has it? What things have surprised you? What's been your favorite part? Tell me. Like, what are you enjoying about this role?
Well, I love my job. Mm-hmm. I really do love my job. It's challenging.
Sure.
And I love a challenge. Honestly, I think I'm a glutton for punishment.
Yeah.
Like, I think a lot of young people are very ambitious.
Right.
Like, you're very ambitious. You took on an entire podcast and just like went with it,
If it would have felt harder not to do it, I guess that's how it feels.
Yeah.
To me.
Right.
It just had to come out.
Exactly. You just like kind of have to go for it.
Yeah.
And I had mentioned, like, I've been like really lucky to have mentors in my life.
Right.
And when this opportunity came up, I was at the Courier at the time, and I didn't need to leave. I loved my role. I loved my team. Was doing, I was feeling really good about what I was doing there. And yet I was like feeling called to also like try this out. And, everybody that all of, the mentors in my life that I spoke to, like really like encouraged me. And I think, helped me see how I could be effective, in this role. And that was really helpful, because I think I was not super confident that I could do the job like it's been done in the past.
Right.
But I think that's the point.
Yeah.
Is you don't always have
that's why they chose you.
Yeah, you don't want to always do it the same way. You do want to come in, and you do want to put your own stamp on things, and you do want to you want to put your own stamp on things, but you also want to get the job done in the way that feels authentic to you. And so I say that being, I in the beginning, I think I was very focused on doing everything well all at once.
Right.
And so once I kind of gave up on that, because you can't do that,
right,
especially with a team of one, me, I was able to like really like compartmentalize, prioritize, and move the needle incrementally.
Right.
And so that's been much more successful. That strategy has been much more successful. I will also say Stay Work Play has an incredible group of corporate advisors, our board of advisors, Granite Advance being one of them, who I'm repping today because they're just incredible. I love them.
Yeah.
And so I've been really lucky to be able to meet with all of them and gain their insight and really in an unbiased way.
Yeah.
And reflect that feedback in how we move forward. So we're at 6 months. To me, that's still new. I'm still young enough in the role where I don't want to claim vision and a roadmap forward. Right. Because I still think there are...
Yeah, you're still in the learning phase.
Yeah, I still want to absorb feedback. Like even this conversation is really helpful for me because I do want to reflect Andy's input on Stay Work Play. Like your input makes a difference in the organization. Stay Work Play exists for New Hampshire. We're not we're a nonprofit organization. Yeah. You're my stakeholder. You're who I need to return investment back to. You're a young person living in New Hampshire. We want to retain you. And so your perspective means a lot. So I will say, like, yes, 6 months, I feel like I have a much better like understanding of where we're going. Yeah. But I'm not gonna claim that stake in the ground yet. Yeah. Because we do need to have input from more voices. And I'm really excited that there does seem to be a lot of interest and a lot of support from various partners, groups, individuals, and even lawmakers and legislators who want to see Stay Work Play succeed, and who want to see the young people in New Hampshire be supported, and who want to see the environment in New Hampshire be conducive to attracting young talent. Because again, like there are ripple effects to that. Communities are enlivened through young people investing in those spaces.
Well, can I ask you the contrived question then, which you can take in any direction you want? Why should they stay? Yeah. Why should they work? Why should they play in New Hampshire?
Yes, I love that. Here's my New Hampshire pitch, my New Hampshire elevator pitch. New Hampshire is so unique. You know this, clearly.
Right, but I love hearing it in 100 billion different ways from other people, right? Everyone's got a different answer.
And it changes every day for me too, It's funny, like driving here, it's foggy, it's cold, I'm chilly, it's Monday. Yeah, I could be really sad. I could be like really depressed, and be like, oh
your
God.
art, you could be macabre.
Yeah, exactly. I could take that tact. But, driving on 101.
Going to Granite Goodness.
Going to Granite Goodness, going to Portsmouth. There's no traffic. No one's yelling at me.
There's trees everywhere.
Trees are beautiful.
Yeah.
Like, roads are well kept. So I say that because, like, literally today I was finding appreciation for our state, and I wasn't even cognizant of it. So, so why should young people stay, work, and play in New Hampshire?
Yeah.
Well, New Hampshire offers an incredible diversity of place. We have distinct regions in this state. For a small state, we have very distinct regions, and I think that's incredibly important to the fabric of our state. Portsmouth and the Seacoast, very different than the Monadnock region and Keene. I will say I love both of those regions so significantly.
Yeah.
And they attract a very different type of person. And I think that's really incredible and really important because we're able to capture the spirit. We're able to capture people's spirits a little bit more than, say, like one homogenous approach, and with that too, like when you're looking at places to put down roots, I think young people really are more so gravitating to states that have that reflect a lifestyle that is less about the rat race. I can't think of anything else.
New Hampshire is not usually at the top of the list for like, where am I, a super ambitious young person gonna go? It's always like, San Francisco or New York and yet
there are extremely ambitious young people in New Hampshire.
Oh yeah.
There is a whole
because they see the
group.
Opportunity.
Exactly. And I think that's the beauty of New Hampshire is the lifestyle as in like your living life, like how you're living day to day. You can leave work at 4:30 and ski on a Friday.
Yeah.
And like that is a way to balance your work and your life. And New Hampshire offers that. There are, I guess our outdoor rec and like our outdoor advantage is really important to how we attract and retain young people. And I would say like that is definitely that's our like top asset.
Yeah.
And like just the beauty of our state, the natural resources of our state. I live in Manchester. We have Lake Massabesic. We have Uncanutic Mountains. I have 2 dogs. I walk my dogs in the forest by myself. No one's around. 5 minutes down the street from my house. I live in Manchester, the biggest city in New Hampshire. Yeah. And I can leave my house, be 5 minutes be in the woods by myself with my 2 dogs.
It's pretty cool.
It's incredible. Yeah. And so I think so when I talk about the New Hampshire lifestyle, it's that. It's that opportunity where you can participate in community and then you can also escape and that's okay and that's celebrated and that's prioritized. And when, the stay and the work part, we have incredible organizations, incredible employers here. Yeah. We have a really pro business climate in New Hampshire.
The New Hampshire advantage.
Yeah. So we really do gain a lot of top employers in the state who are competitive for comp, who I can tell you from firsthand experience want young talent to be a part of their workforce solution moving forward. So they're willing to be competitive for young talent, they're forward looking, and they're a lot of our employers are also building partnerships with our educational institutions. Like there is just a lot of synergy with our business community in New Hampshire. I think as a young person, especially an ambitious young person, you can do anything you want in New Hampshire if you're ambitious. Yeah. You can be an entrepreneur. You can work in tech. We have an incredible biofab community now. Yeah. New Hampshire Life Sciences is thriving. We have incredible healthcare organizations. If you're ambitious, you can get it done in New Hampshire. Yeah. The community is small enough that we can go to a networking event and have FaceTime with the CEO of the company that we want to be hired at. Yeah. And I don't think that exists in other places. you're always like one or two steps removed from the person you want to be connected with.
Yeah.
And I will say, like, this is like the intangible quality of New Hampshire that it's like hard to capture and like promote.
Yes.
And market is like, how do you talk about that? Like, how do you talk about the community's aptitude and like appetite for wanting other people to succeed?
Yeah.
But like, we have that in New Hampshire.
Right.
That's unique.
Yeah.
That's extremely unique.
Yeah.
So I do like when I have the opportunity to talk to young people one-on-one,
right.
I'm laser focused on that opportunity. That's what I experienced.
Yeah.
And I've seen it across the board with, other folks in my network.
Right.
And it's really important. And again, that's the New Hampshire spirit.
Yeah.
Neighbors helping neighbors.
The New Hampshire way.
The New Hampshire way, that granite state of mind.
Yeah.
And it's a really, really positive thing, especially for a young person who's trying to get ahead in their career.
Yeah.
And then play. Come on.
Right.
Come on.
Look
that
outside.
one's easy. That one's easy.
Because lots of people come here to do that.
Just
we got the
look at look at the license plates on 93 any given weekend. It's like, it's silly.
Right.
Just live here. Come on. You're going to spend how many hours a week?
Yeah.
Commuting to New Hampshire? Just live here.
I know.
You'd be here already if you lived here, So I think play is an easy one for us to sell. However, I will say Stay Work Play conducts a quality of life survey every 2 years, which is a cornerstone of our value as an organization.
Yeah.
And we work with the St. A's Survey Center and Montaigne Powers to do this, and incredible partners. And so we capture the attitudes of young people and assess the risk factors and our assets as far as what's attracting young people and what's attracting and retaining young people, but also what might encourage them to leave.
Right.
And so number one is housing. Shocker.
Right.
As far as risk factors for a leakage of our young people. Number two is social life. And so play, though, like, I laugh and I'm like, of course, there's so much to do.
Right.
What is harder for us to manage is the connectivity between young people, because the example I used was, I can leave my house and be alone in the woods.
Yeah.
That's very easy to do in New Hampshire.
Right.
But imagine being a young person, especially having gone through high school, maybe through COVID, not having those soft skills that are necessary to be a social butterfly, that I think some past generations take for granted, quite frankly. And you have a great job and you have an apartment and you got your career kind of locked down and you're doing that. And yet on the weekends, you're kind of lost and you don't have community, and that's where we lose people, and that's where we lose young people to Boston every day. Because I said this during the close-up interview with Adam Sexton this weekend. I did a quick little snapshot on Google. In Boston, you could find I found an apartment in Somerville. It was like $3,300 a month. You have a roommate, whatever, and I think like starting salary for like somebody in customer service was $30 an hour. That same job, same size company, was $16 an hour in Manchester. Same apartment, $2,500.
Right. Okay.
The differential there is like very, very important. The cost of living in Manchester versus Boston, the gap is like very small. So what is the determining factor for a young person to choose Manchester over Boston? They're going to choose Boston every time. Because of the social life, because of the social opportunities. All of their friends are moving to Boston. So I will say, play is, for me, it is a big contender in priority for Stay Work Play. Which can sometimes skew as silly, but like we advocated for, or we testified on a bill that Representative Grill sponsored that would extend operating hours for bars to 2 a.m.
Sure.
Massachusetts bars are open until 2 a.m.
Yeah.
It literally just keeps us competitive.
Right.
And not to say that all young people drink, and that's totally a trend. More young people are choosing sober life, and that's incredible.
Yeah.
But it's
a lever we can pull.
Exactly. Right. And why not?
Yeah.
And I understand all of the other arguments, totally understand it. Right. But as far as why we would speak to that, it's because of that factor. Like, young people are choosing to orient themselves in a location where they have more opportunity to meet people their own age, even if it means taking a cut or spending more on rent. They want to be in community with people their own age. And why wouldn't they? I talk to people all the time. I moved to Boston because I couldn't find anybody to date.
Wow.
So it's like
you hear that, New Hampshire singles?
Yeah, exactly. If we need like a stay work play dating website.
Yeah,
that'd be cool.
That'd be funny. We can get that out there. We can work on that.
A job board, a dating board on Stay Work Play website.
Well, no, I will. I mean,
that's my soapbox. Sorry, Andy.
No, it's a good soapbox. It's a great soapbox, Corinne. I loved everything you had to say. Yeah, no, I mean, there's so much there. Like, what's interesting to me, and you think about this more than I do, right? Of like this counter trend, right? Of like, because we know that plenty of not to boil all the interesting things down to like New Hampshire and Massachusetts, right? But in terms of like, if you're going to look at these demographic flows, right? We hemorrhage young people often to Mass, but Mass hemorrhages people to us.
Totally.
Right? And so it's like, so why do they come here?
Yeah.
And how can we, double down on our advantages, right? And accelerate. And my rough sense is that, because, this term you guys invented it, boomerangers, right? A lot of people leave, they come back. So it's like, and what do they come back for, right?
Yeah.
Sense of community. They've realized there's career opportunities. They want to get out of the city necessarily. Like, they prefer a smaller city, so I don't know. Do you think about it in those terms? Like, that's what comes to mind for me. We lose people, but we gain them too.
We do. And I will say we are seeing more in-migration than out-migration in this demographic.
Right. Which is a strong position to be in.
Very strong position to be in, specifically when you're looking at the national playing field too. Bringing up that the social qualifier is more of like raising that red flag.
Yeah.
Because we do perform really well with boomerangs, and you'll see it in the quality of life survey. The 30 to 40-year-olds, we crush.
Yeah.
As far as like perception of quality of life. Like, we do great. New Hampshire is perceived very, very favorably. Also at that point in your life, you can also make some assumptions. You're probably making a little bit more. You're probably able to afford housing at that point. You have more options. And so that's really lovely. But when you look at the demographic that we serve, it's 20 to 40. That's a really broad spectrum.
Right.
And when we talk about the workforce issue, there's that missing middle. We can't discount the 20 to 30-year-olds.
Yeah. That's
a really important demographic to engage with. And so like, we do need to, yes, we are seeing like an osmosis between New Hampshire and the Mass border. And I will always have that. And honestly, I'm a big proponent of that.
Oh yeah.
Our economy is driven by Massachusetts and not fully, but like, and vice versa.
Yeah.
And like,
we're not enemies. We're not enemies. We complement so many things, and they're our neighbors.
We're like rival siblings who at the end of the day love each other.
Right. Yeah. But competition is good and healthy.
Exactly. But like, I think we can,
but we're better.
But obviously.
Just to be clear.
That's 100% true. I mean, that was never even a question, but like, I think we can do more of, what I would love to do is get very clear on what New Hampshire offers and really build awareness around that and build a promotional campaign so that we're targeting the right person to come to New Hampshire. So we're not selling a false bill of goods.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Right.
So we're finding the person who is looking for the New Hampshire way of life.
Right.
And so that we're having more conversion, we're having more retention, and so that we're also celebrating our greatest assets.
Yeah.
And, again, like I think in the past, and this is my perception, I don't actually think there was a campaign that said New Hampshire is the cost-effective version of Massachusetts, right. But I think there was that perception.
Yeah.
Not really the case anymore, or at least it's not a very convincing story anymore,
right.
Or it's not substantial enough to convert that many individuals to our cause, I guess.
Yeah.
But I think there's something out there is a profile out there that we can develop as a community, a positive profile that we can say, this is the type of person that will love New Hampshire.
Right.
And I'm sure there are many different profiles, and then being able to then use that as a marketing campaign tactic, like that's what I want to see, so that we can find those people and welcome them to the community that they've been missing.
Yeah.
And that's New Hampshire.
Yes.
No,
that makes me so happy to hear.
Yeah.
Because I can't tell you, like, again, there is this weird, again, love it or hate it, right? Like,
right.
You'd be remiss not to notice that, popular slogan in New Hampshire politics lately, don't mass up New Hampshire.
Yeah.
Right? And so there is this awareness of like, whoa, people are moving here, right? And we want to retain the things, that are our values, but also accommodate, growth, right? Which is a blessing to have. And, my view is that this is like, again, we were talking off mic before, I think we are just, and this was Joe Sweeney's opinion as well, for the record, right?
Yeah.
Like I talked to him and I was like, what do you think about all this stuff? And he said, I don't know, but I think the next big thing is going to be from New Hampshire. He's like, I can't put my words on it. He's like, I just feel really strongly about that, which was a cool way to frame it. But like, I think that we balance these things really well.
Yeah.
Corinne, I do. Like the social capital here is extraordinary, and I know people, like they've moved here just for that.
Yeah.
And, this, like, what do a lot of young people want, right? Like, people like being outside. They want to feel, who doesn't love local food? People love local food, right? Like, people like nature. They want community, but they also want third places, but modernity, right? Like technology and opportunity, all those things. We have all of that stuff. And, my view is like the challenge, like it's going to be keeping up. Like, it certainly is, getting them here, but like we have it all, particularly even, if people are, like the rural New Hampshire, right? Where it's just like where I've like oriented towards, like, is so, I mean, some of these rural counties have seen population growth, like in the last census, I think for some of these reasons, like just these towns are just ready and waiting for a bunch of young people to show up and be like, what's up? Like, well, hey, we can have a really cool life here and have all these things. And we can go to Manchester, go to Portsmouth, go to Keene, like, there's a lot of opportunity. So you're speaking my language.
I do love that. And you see a lot of like those like targeted ads, right? Like, I don't know if you see them, like Ireland will pay you $200,000 to move to this remote island, and it's because those locations have not done a great job at attracting and retaining young people, young families.
Right.
And so their economies are not prospering and they're literally dying off.
Right.
And so I think like we just need to be aware of that.
We can be ahead of the game.
Yeah, exactly. And so like being able to talk about the value of having your life rooted in a Tamworth, in a Barrington, in a Walpole, like these really
cool Manchester,
like, or in Concord and Portsmouth, like in these beautiful New Hampshire towns that, like, again, like vibrant, full of life, full of incredible people doing incredible work, great employers, like cutting edge employers in all different sectors. Like, there's just so much opportunity here, and and the media right now, and I am part of this issue, because I have to be, but part of that media right now, that media campaign right now, is bringing light to the housing crisis, which is absolutely part of how we address New Hampshire's vitality in the future, we have to talk about the housing crisis, and crisis in and of itself is a very negative word. And so
I think it's appropriate, though.
It is appropriate. And I love this opportunity being able to talk to you, Andy, because I kind of get down on myself, because when we're always talking about the negative, you lose sight of all the you lose airtime to talk about all the positive that New Hampshire has to offer. And so I think if we keep filling the airwaves with New Hampshire has a problem in housing, it's so not affordable to live here, we're not going to see those immigration numbers creep up. We do need to balance that with let's celebrate all of the incredible work that is also being done finding solutions, and investing in infrastructure that young people care about.
Yeah. No, I mean my view, and I love everything you just said. Right, is because housing, it's an issue everywhere. Right. I think you can look at the whole landscape, and some places they're doing better. Right. They're figuring out better zoning, more flexible zoning, and building more and increasing supply and driving the prices down, all that stuff. And we can learn from all this stuff, but what I would point to, and this is optimism in the framing of this show, Corinne, right? You're a great example of it, because it is not a denial of the issues. It's not that. It's a conviction that they're out there, but they're being worked on by really smart people. And I think it's more productive.
Totally.
And feels good too, to view through that lens, right? Of hey, this is a problem. It's been building slowly for a while. This big event, pandemic, just kind of put it more in everyone's face. And it's whoa, okay, a lot of different people. If I was going to talk to a young person from, I don't know, whatever, California, try and convince them to move here, what I would tell them, I'd say, hey, if you look at median home prices or median rent prices, certainly, we're not doing extraordinarily well, right? We could get there, I think. But what I would point them to is, what we're doing that a lot of places aren't. I know this woman, her name's Corinne Benfield, and I know this other person. I know these 12,000 other people.
Exactly.
And, she is leading this amazing coalition of all these different people who touch the different parts of this, right? I mean, this was a thing that just happened. You're engaged in the work anyway, but what was this massive thing 2 weeks ago? This big announcement of
the housing coalition.
Right? That doesn't just happen.
No.
That is a reflection of everything we're talking about.
Absolutely.
The fact that all these different players have come together and been no, this thing is, it's a little messed up, and we can make it better.
Absolutely.
Let's build a big tent about it and try and work on it, right? And the fact that I can point to that example, which I would wager would outperform, there are many places, bigger, richer, more established, right, that are failing to approach issues with that kind of lens and attitude and breadth of involvement. And so that's a leading example of it. Hey, we don't have the lowest rent prices in the whole country, but look at all these amazing people who are really working hard at it. And we're whacking away, and we have made a lot of progress. We
absolutely.
have made a lot of progress recently.
And I will say, just to echo that, we have incredible leadership right now. Both at the gubernatorial level, Governor Ayotte is absolutely a champion for housing affordability. You can see that reflected in her budget proposal. New Hampshire is extremely lucky to have Mike Skelton at the head of the BIA.
I'm talking to him next week.
Great. Wonderful. Well, please tell him that I said that, because the Housing Supply Coalition was definitely his kind of brainchild, with the New Hampshire Association of Realtors and the New Hampshire Builders Association and the Housing New Hampshire and a fair few others. But, Mike in particular has been a mentor of mine for a long time and has always made space for me at the table, and very much so indebted to him in a lot of different ways. And New Hampshire is too. I really, as far as finding solutions incredible.
Yeah.
Just an incredible, like, forward-thinking approach, bringing the right people to the right table at the right time.
Yeah.
And being, like, insatiable and with finding a path forward.
Yeah.
And finding synergy. New Hampshire is extremely, extremely lucky to have the leaders that we have in place right now.
Right.
And I love that. And I love that you called that to attention, because you're right. Like, you can absolutely say, wow, look at all of these problems. But on the flip side, you can also say, look at how the media is being a part of the solution.
Yeah.
And look at all of the people, all of the organizations that have rallied together
Right.
to find a way forward and to map out a plan for the future so that we can all succeed.
Yeah.
And I do think that is very uniquely New Hampshire. That's a very strategic approach, and it is top down. And you'll see a lot coming from the Housing Supply Coalition. I think in particular, like, that movement, I think really has sparked a lot of collaboration. So thank you for calling that out.
Well, it's the real deal, you know, and for all the hoopla of the news, right? Like, it's good to remember it's just a snapshot of right now,
right?
Like what we do not see, and what we are very much not incentivized to see,
right,
is, okay, what was the snapshot 20 years ago,
yes,
10 years ago, 5? What were all the huge problems that people were yelling about at that time?
Yeah.
And again, I'm mad too. Housing sucks. It's like, it's not good. We need to fix it, but
right.
we're working on it, and
it's a long-term thing.
Yeah, 15 years from now, 10 years from now, 5, even 1, like, it's all incremental. Like, we'll look back and be like, oh, look at that. They really did, like, uncork the housing supply and, like, help drive prices, like, but we don't see things in those terms, and it's all slow, in a good way. What does live free or die mean to you?
Oh, live free or die. I said, oh God, living free. I think living free in New Hampshire for me means just being able to, like, be your authentic self and being able to, like, navigate this big crazy world and still feel at home, and still feel at home and at peace. And I just think that no matter what happens on the national playing field, we are so lucky to have this state as a net and as a cushion and as a community of people that care. And so, like, live free is so lofty and big, right?
Right.
But I think living free also means living free in community, and living free in community specifically with New Hampshire.
Corinne, thanks so much. This has been really fun.
Thanks, Andy. Thanks so much for having me.
Hey there, thanks for spending some time with us, and I hope you enjoyed the conversation. You can learn more about today's guest and how to get involved with or support their work in the show notes. If you'd like to suggest a guest for the show or have any story tips for our Good News in New Hampshire newsletter, shoot me a message at hello@granitegoodness.com. Music for this episode was provided by the band Sneaky Miles, who hail from Newmarket, New Hampshire. Until next time, I'm the creator and host of Granite Goodness, Andy DeMeo. Thanks for listening.